Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk about how to start a podcast in 2021. It's a question I've gotten several times throughout, my year and a half journey so far, and figured why not just make a video. For context, for anyone that doesn't know, I started the Grateful Living podcast in March of 2020, and since then have been fortunate enough to get 12,000 plays in that time period. So that's just a little bit about me. The first thing I want to say is I think, figure out a topic or a theme of the podcast and then figure out your purpose in doing the podcast. Hopefully finding the topic is not too bad. It should be something you're passionate about and something you want to talk more about and inform others about. One thing I'll say is I think niche topics are not a bad idea. I think passionate fan bases come from specific topics. So what I mean by that is, if you're a food enthusiast and you like a vegan diet, for example, I think creating a vegan podcast versus creating, a general food podcast, I would go with the vegan podcast because I think it's specific and people know what they're going to get out of you. And I think building an audience is easier because there are a lot more like-minded people within that. Another example might be, building a Red Sox specific podcast versus building a baseball podcast. And as I said, the second thing I would say is, have know your purpose. Anything you do in life, especially the things that you're committing to for a long time, you want purpose attached to them. And I'm not even saying it needs to be a noble or selfless purpose. You might be in a particular industry and you might say selfishly, I want to network with people within my industry and meet industry leaders, and that's why you're doing it. As long as you know why you're doing it and you have a benchmark of success, I think that always helps with staying consistent with something. For all of the pieces of advice, I'll give my own personal way I handle it. So, personally, for me, I lost someone in March of 2019 to suicide. And, as the 1 year anniversary of that event was coming, I wanted to figure out a way to actionably help with destigmatizing mental health. And so, in March of 2020, I started the Grateful Living podcast with the idea that it would be a mental health podcast. And, for me, the purpose was just, to help anybody else out through their journeys with the content that I was producing and, just kind of honor my friend's life. The second thing I want to do is figure out if you want to do audio or video. For me, I would recommend you do both, just because I think it allows you to be on all the platforms, and I just think video is powerful just in general. Personally, I had just started out with audio and then transitioned to adding both audio and video. And that was my journey. The next question I would ask is, do you think you'll have any other team members, any other co-hosts? I think there are a lot of benefits to, having someone else in doing a project like a podcast. It's another person who can come up with ideas. If you're interviewing, it's another person to reach out to people. It's another person when you're interviewing to ask questions. You can split up the work of producing the podcast, like editing. And I think, obviously that also comes with cons. Division of work can be unclear. One person may be working harder than the other person. There may be differences in visions, and how you resolve that may be unclear. Personally, for me, I kind of was doing this as a passion project, so I wanted to control all aspects creatively. So I've just been solo, and but as I said, that comes with the negative of all the work is put on me. The fourth thing I would say is figure out your format. Are you going to do a series of episodes on a topic? Will you interview people? How long will the episodes be? I think the main thing in terms of building, people and fans and people watching your content consistently is them having, some sort of knowledge of what they expect week in and week out. And so having a consistent format, allows them to grow to like your content. And again, personally, I started out just recording different mental health topics on my iPhone. And, after 4 episodes, I realized, obviously I have my story, but it's powerful to learn from other people's stories. And so I transitioned into recording podcasts on Zoom and interviewing people. It became quite obvious, at that time, for example, me speaking about Black Lives Matter versus interviewing someone who is African American and them speaking on it can be a lot more powerful, as an example. The fifth thing you might want to consider is whether you want to create cover art and a music intro. Both allow, the podcast to have a semblance of professionalism. Personally, I haven't done a lot of work in this area. I put up a picture of myself as my cover art. And I honestly might be in the minority for this. I actually don't like intro musics to podcasts. I'm, someone, that doesn't have a ton of time. So for me, time is very valuable, and so I like to just go straight to the content, and that's what I've created. I don't know if that's, the smartest move professionally, but that's how I've always looked at things. Again, I've never used these sites, but I've heard they're good. 99designs.com I think is a good way to outsource cover art. And then Music Radio Creative is a platform I've heard that is good for creating intro music. Again, I have not used either of them personally. The sixth thing I would say is figure out the publishing platform you'll use. And again, let me just be clear from the start. I've only ever used Anchor. Anchor is free and offers unlimited storage. It publishes on Apple, Spotify, Breaker, Google, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, and Castbox. So you upload it to Anchor and it publishes it all to those platforms. The other major player that I've researched is Lipsync, and most of my research comes from a Wired Clip article. I'll link that in the show notes, but according to their article, Lipsync has several plans based on storage space. So for example, for $15 a month, you can get 250 megabytes of storage. For context, 1 hour of audio is usually around 40 megabytes. And I think the major difference is that Lipsync can publish on every platform when you do it. So for example, like Anchor doesn't publish to SoundCloud, but I believe Lipsync does. And then from what I've read, Lipsync also offers advanced analytics to help understand your audience better. And then finally, it's equipment. I originally just started recording on my iPhone. For audio, it's not terrible. It's obviously not the highest quality, but when you're starting out, it's not bad. And then obviously there are plenty of mics out there. I'll have the equipment I use for my podcast linked in the show notes. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up the 7 main areas that I kind of see when you're trying to figure out how to start a podcast. If there's any other questions that you have, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to do another video or to just, respond to you. And yeah, thank you guys.